Dear Diary, making the decision to immigrate to Calgary felt like I was placing an Amazon order for freedom, endless possibilities, social security, and a beautiful world of seamlessly integrated multiculturalism. Only instead of autofilling my credit card information, clicking buy now, and receiving my package the next day, I spent months filling out paperwork and acquiring various documentations. And I spent years waiting for my visa. And when my metaphorical package finally did arrive, it wasn't exactly what I ordered.
We're Onya and Tomi, and on Diary of a Niger Immigrant, we're talking about what happens after you buy that one-way ticket. We'll chat with guests and hear their immigration stories. We'll commiserate, celebrate wins, and gossip about recent microaggressions. Buckle up, y'all. This is part 2 of our conversation with Tola. If you missed part 1, be sure to check that out first and then join us back here. All right, let's get into it.
I don't know anything.
You were like, I was soaking up the last moments of my life.
Exactly. like I get, I'm sad. I'm sad. I'm a sad girl. And like, yeah, so that's how it happened. And I was furious. I've never been so upset with my parents in my whole life. And I think that what made me like really sad, like I understand like why they feel like they had to move, because like, you know, like the xenophobia and like the way of like, you know, economy is like going down and stuff like that. And you know, the lights are going off, you know, NEPA, all the things is giving NEPA
There was
situation.
no NEPA in South Africa.
That's what I'm saying. But like our NEPA is ESCOM. So it's
Yeah.
just like, so look, those kinds of things. And it was like, okay, fine. But like for me, what I just wish I got from my parents was like, I understand this is going to be hard, but they were just trying to like give all the reasons like, oh, do you want to just stay here and then this. I'm like, of course I want to stay here. This is where the people like, I love her here, my friends are here, my life is here. Like in my brain, my future is here as well. And then now you're telling me that I don't get to have the things that I plan for myself. I once again have to do the things that you plan for me.
Yeah.
Even though I'm the ripe age of 19. So I'm just like, wow. I was like, wow. So I just wish that I had a little more empathy for them, because I know like they had to move from their home country. And I'm sure if the situation allowed, they probably wouldn't have moved. It's like, why would I move away from my home and my family and all these things when I don't have to?
Right.
But they felt like they had to. And so I was like, okay. But so I wish I had like that empathy for them, but like they were just kind of like pissed at me.
Right.
They were pissed at me for being sad that I had to leave my home against my will. So
that's
I think it's like
tricky.
a lot of people, like what's interesting is I wrote a piece for CBC about that.
Yeah.
And see, I knew a way it was gonna go. And I was hoping it, like, part of me was hoping it wasn't go the way I thought it was gonna go, but it went exactly the way I thought it was gonna go.
Okay, which is what?
And I was just talking about, I was talking about my experience, how, you know, like I was homesick. I felt like I didn't belong here. I had to like, you know, fake who I am to like fit in this PWI. You know, I was upset. And I had like a metaphor in there that just like kind of went over people's heads. How it was like the sky here in Calgary, like there aren't as many stars as there are back home. You can't see the stars, like that kind of thing just made me sad. And like I know I was like in the snow, in the cold, looking up at the starless sky. And like, I'm just not home, that kind of thing. And it just went over people's heads, and people
You were like,
were
we have stars here.
mad. People were mad in the
my-
comments. They were like, if you're
Actually?
sad, like if you're sad in the winter time, just go skiing. Like you can afford to go skiing. Like an immigrant family can just afford to go skiing in the mountains.
Like,
Do you know how much skis cost?
Oh my God,
Are you
just go
insane?
skiing. You are
It's so
seriously so
cold.
dumb.
You know,
like why?
you know, and they're
shut
like
up.
they're like just go home. Like, you know, I'm forced you to move here. It's like actually colonization forced me to move. Like this is a ripple effect of colonization. You have a whole bunch of like African immigrants moving to all the different
Who, by
places.
the way, are forced to move.
Literally forced to move.
Like, so
The situation calls for moving.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing is like also like don't think your country's perfect, because we see the you know the covert racism and the overt sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes like the unaware overt racism. It's like you're being overtly racist, but in your brain you just cannot fathom. You cannot fathom that you're being racist. And so I had so many like white Canadians in the comments like literally like just berating me, and I responded to each and every
You
one.
did not.
I did.
First of all, so
Yeah,
you're
time
telling
on
me
your
I did.
you read all of the
I
comments.
read and responded,
and
baby.
You responded.
Yes, and what
Stop.
I know what kind of made me sad is like there were like some immigrants like in the comments that said like you're making this seem like a bad place for you're discouraging other immigrants. I'm like, no, They need to know what the hell is up.
Yeah.
Why?
You're also talking about your personal experience.
Exactly. Like,
And
this is my experience. And like lots of people also like relate to this experience, like immigrants that are here. So you're probably like an immigrant dad who also forced this upon their children. I think you're doing your best. Like, I'm not insulting your choice, but I need to know like the realities of moving here, like in your adulthood.
Yes.
Even like in your childhood, like moving schools when you're a kid was rough.
Well, that's the thing.
Just schools.
Every transition comes with some suffering, and
I
you
know.
cannot. I mean, obviously, we've talked to how many people so far. Like, you've shared your journey. I mean, you cannot talk about immigration and immigrating here without talking about significant mental health challenges.
Exactly.
Like, significant. So the idea that somebody would be offended by
Yes.
you, like,
Just
sharing
talking
a
about
little bit
it.
about that suffering, sharing about
Yeah.
that experience is
Yes.
just wild to me. I'm like, clearly you have not processed
Yes.
your own pain,
Your own
and
pain.
and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Exactly. So it was like a mix of that, and I was like so upset. Of course, like after that, I got like LinkedIn messages, Facebook messages, like comments on my website. I was like, yay.
yeah,
And then like DMs on Instagrams, like some people like saying how like they were like, oh my gosh, this is wild. I relate to this. Even like European
course.
immigrants, like people who like
yeah,
weren't like historically here already, but like they like just moved. They were like, yeah, I also feel this as well. And of course, they acknowledged like it's not the same as the Black experience. But they were like, yeah, just like being an immigrant, like it's rough.
yes.
And so when you talk about mental health, like my mental health went down. It went down. I actually never thought like in my life I could feel as horrible as I'd ever felt like in my first, second, almost third year of university, especially like, with moving, trying to fit in, dealing with the racism in class, outside class, in the world, having someone call you an N-word out of Safeway at the bus stop, and you're just like, wow, having unhoused people yell the N-word at you, go home. I'm like, bro, like the thing is, I sympathize with you because you don't have a home, but you're telling me to go home. Like, damn, I wish we could both go home. I wish we could both have a home. So it's just like it was so wild to me. So then like especially when it came to like making friends, because in the end it's like you said before, like I love that I still have like my accent, because of course like sometimes I'll be talking to people and either they'll be like, oh no, you're talking too fast. I'm like, my Black folk understand me.
Like,
or they're like, oh, what did you say? And then you force yourself to like speak like more Canadian because you need people to understand you, and it's so frustrating to have to repeat yourself all the time. And then of course in all the courses in school, like as soon as they start doing the race and ethnicity section of the course, and you're just like, oh my god, this is my time to shine, because sometimes you can tell like the prof is looking right in your eyes.
oh my god, that's
Like right in your eyes. And then like, oh my god, and people always look at you like you can tell them like they're kind of looking at you when they reference like Black people or something like that, because you're the only one in
they're
there.
like, diversity, like staring at you, and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody excuse. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm not going to call out anybody specifically because there is a phone call and a meeting that I plan to make and have. But some student told me out of some school there was a class, and there was like a diversity class or whatever, and they're the only Black person in that class, of course, and it was just brutal to sit through. Like, she was describing some of the content. I was like, oh my god, this sounds awful. And she failed the class. So
The only Black person failed
the only Black person failed the class, which makes sense, by the way, because she was probably like, I cannot participate. This is brutal. And now she's going to go talk to somebody about seeing if there's another class she can take instead. I was like, no, absolutely not. You get full credit for that course and you move on. This is crazy. Like, this 100%. Is absolutely crazy. But all of these diversity classes, like, oh my gosh, that there's like one Black kid and everybody's like staring at them, and
exactly.
like, just the worst.
Especially because all my classes were like in kinesiology. Kinesiology is kind of like, it's literally like, it's a white faculty in a white institution. Yeah. So I was like I think for me, like in most of my classes I was the only Black person. And then when I hit second year, like I started to see like I got one more, two more.
You're like, okay.
They weren't even necessarily in kines, like they might have been like in like nursing. I had to take a kines course and stuff like that. But like, so it was very much like I was the first Black member of the Kinesiology Student Society. I was the first kinesiology games captain of the Kinesiology society, which has been going on for like since 2000. So I was the first.
Oh, boy.
You know, I was like the first of many things like in the Canadian faculty. So I was just like, oh my God, what is happening? So I was like, I didn't come here to be the poster black child,
Yeah,
you know?
you're like, I didn't come here to make history. I'm just trying to get an education.
Exactly. And it was so rough because I was dealing with like all these, like, because I was living in the student residence. So like there was like so many things like going on. Like the first two like friends I had in residence, like some things went down. I got punched by a white man, you know?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah. So I got
Why?
like punched by
How?
this guy who like we were just like we were like hanging out in my room, and then he was like drunk, and then he punched my friend. And so like it was like out of nowhere, right? And it was like a sloppy drunk man punch, you know? And and she was like shocked. And so like my other two friends were also shocked. And then so he tried to run away, you know? So I literally went after him. I was like, stay with her. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna call campus security, stay with her, and then I'm gonna go find this violent human being. Because in my brain I'm like, justice. You know, my brain went to justice first, okay? I'm like, she's okay, make sure she's okay, then justice. So I ran after him, literally like at the, outside the residence, and then he suddenly stopped when I was running after him. He suddenly stopped, turned around, punched me in the face. I fell to the ground. I've never been punched before. People say South Africa is so violent. I've never been punched until I came to the country. So make it make sense. Anyway, so I was like, oh my gosh. So this was a person that was supposed to be like, my friend and stuff like that. And then, yeah, in the end, like, he ended up like leaving the school and all those kinds of things. But then my two like girlfriends, the first one that I met here, because I ended up being like interrogated by campus security like outside, because of course they saw this whole like altercation and yelling and stuff. And I was there for I was talking to them for like 2 hours before I could go back to my room. And yeah, then later on they were like, we can't be friends with you anymore because you chose to stay with the other guy that punched her instead of staying with us. I'm like, what do you mean? I went and got punched myself. In the end, like I thought to myself, it's like, you know what? I shouldn't have ran to defend these people. I shouldn't have done it. Like, okay, it's like, okay, maybe I could have stayed in the room. Maybe fine, let that be my fault. But then do I deserve to get punched and then have the people I was trying to defend like tell me that I was doing things that I wasn't doing? I'm like, wait, what?
Oh my God,
and so
what
all
is
those
happening?
things, and then so that happened, and that happened after my roommate moved out. Because
What year was this?
This was 2016 in winter.
Okay, so this is like in your
January.
first.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I was just like, oh my God.
What a traumatic experience, period.
I know.
But what a traumatic experience at
I know.
this season of your life.
I know. And I was like so alone because my roommate, when I got there, I had a roommate. She was from Zimbabwe. She was the only other black girl like on the floor. So of course they put us together. At first I didn't know she was Zimbabwe, but then I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, when we saw each other, we were like, I see. I see what they did here. We know what you were doing. You put the two black girls together. I was like, honestly, bless up.
Yeah,
because
you're like, appreciate it.
Appreciate it, but also like, what?
But also that's weird.
Like, bruh. Exactly. So, but then like she had to end up move out. So like, I mean, one, I had the room to myself, which is nice, but then I was like even like lonelier than before. And then, it was very sad. And then, I started like, I was like in depression, and I ended up like, failing courses. And then I was put on academic probation. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I feel like I should say it out loud. I was put on academic probation.
Yeah, I'm like,
because I ended up like, it was like, I was like on academic probation, and then I had to have like a meeting because it got to the point where they were like, you need to leave the school.
Tell us about that experience, first of all, of just kind of slowly being like, I'm struggling, because like obviously this is a very difficult time, and then trying to keep up with everything, feeling overwhelmed, and then this actually happens, which is an additional stressor, an additional burden. What was that experience like?
First it was the guilt. I was like, oh my God, I failed school. The one thing my parents asked me to do, I failed. I was like, they sacrificed so much. They moved their home country, then they moved again, and all these things. They sacrificed time with us. They sacrificed, their own mental health. And I went and I failed school like a piece of trash. And I was like, this is it. This is my end. Of course, like there were so many things like going on that caused me to fail. Like there was a time when like I was like in a depressive episode. It lasted like 2 weeks. I didn't notice that I missed 2 midterms, and each of them was like. It was like 25% kind of midterms, and I was like, "Oh my God!" It's not even like I didn't know the work. I didn't realize the time was going by, and I didn't realize what was happening, and it got to a situation where it's like, like during school, I wasn't always like the like a super strong student. Like I had like my strong subjects, but like for the other subjects, I really had to grind. I really had to grind to like, like get those like, 80%, like all those things. Like back home, like 80% is distinction. So I was like, oh my God, what's happening? Like I'm working hard like I used to work hard, but I'm not getting the results I used to get. So I'm just like, what is happening? And then I was like, okay, like, and then there was all these like things like study groups and stuff, but I always felt like everyone was like so like far ahead of me. Like I hated being in that space because no one is like slowing down for you. They're like, how do you not know this yet, kind of thing. Instead of like, so in the end it's like, oh, you need a tutor, and you're like, okay, but the tutoring times one, can't afford it because I don't have a job. My parents are barely covering like my tuition and like my residence. This is like an extra cost. And then, my family was kind of like struggling at the time as well because, just because you have a job in Africa doesn't mean you're going to have that job in Canada. And then it was like all these things. And then I was just like, wow, what do I do? And then so when it got to the point where, and then of course, I got punched in the face and my two friends I thought I had friends were not my friends and all these things, and my roommate moved out and I was just like, oh my God. So I was just like, wow, this is great. And then I was dealing with like missing my friends. I had to break up with my boyfriend back home because of long distance. And I was just like, damn, this is some rough stuff. I was like, I'm so sad right now. And then so when the school asked me to leave the premises, there was actually, thankfully, there was like a thing where you can like appeal the decision and like show like you're gonna do, basically like prove that you should stay, kind of thing. So I did the whole process, but the process looked like me going into a room of my professors and peers. So there's like, I think like 2 students and the rest is like profs and then the dean. And I had to tell them all my traumas and tell them why exactly I'm basically trash at school right now. Give me a second chance. So I literally had to bare my soul in front of all these people. I cried my eyes out, I just cried there in front of all these people telling them like, listen, I can do better, basically. Please let me stay, because if I get kicked out of school, my life will literally be a living hell. More than it is already in my own brain, but now it's going to be external as well. So, yeah, so thankfully, because I had to also give a plan of action. I had to give them a plan of action. So in the end, like basically I ended up doing like 3 courses a semester. I did like, I would do like a spring, a summer, because like I still wanted to like, graduate on time. I didn't want to graduate in like a million years. So I was limited to 3 courses a semester. I had to go to therapy, like counseling at the wellness center, which is also not great. It's not a great process.
What about it wasn't working?
Like you go to the wellness center and you say like you want therapy, so you fill out a form and then they get back to you. And the person that gets back to you isn't even the therapist. It's a person that then matches your therapist. So between the time that I applied for therapy and got therapy, it was about 2 months. So I'm like, and then you only get six sessions. So you get like, I'm like, how does how did this help me? Yeah. And they don't have Black therapists either. Of course. Yeah. So he's like,
so the 6 sessions weren't helpful at all?
Not really. Like the therapist that I had, she I kind of sat there like listening to like white noise sometimes, and then she'd print out a sheet for me to like go home with. Like, I was like, so for me, this might sound like weird to people, but to me, therapy helped for me because I said I need to put myself in a better position, so I don't need to be here. So I was like, I don't want to be here anymore, so I'm going to work so hard to not have to go to therapy.
Have to come back here.
So, because therapy was like, it was pissing me off. So I was just like, I can't do this. I also didn't want to be seen as like, this like weak person that like needed to go to therapy because she was doing like bad in school.
Okay.
So yeah, so
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna butt in there just because I don't want people to have the impression that therapy is a bad thing. And
I know, exactly.
Like, if you need help and you need to see a therapist, absolutely you should. Yes. But there was a reason why this therapy wasn't helpful for you.
The specific therapy. Yeah, this specific therapy, the specific therapist, the specific like situation.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so down for therapy. I'm so like, if I could find an amazing Black therapist that's gonna get me, she won't get rid of me. I'll be there forever.
Yeah.
I'll be there
I'll
forever.
give you my girl's number. She's the
Yeah,
best.
so in the end, that's what happened is I had to find my own kind of therapy.
Yeah.
Which is why I ended up doing poetry and spoken word. Because Bethel Afterwork, she like runs the alcove, exactly. She was like the president of the Spoken Word Society at the time. And my roommate, before she moved out, she was like, we should go to this. Because I told her that I write poetry sometimes and I posted on a bad Tumblr and WordPress blog. She said, yeah, we should go. And then that was my first time performing like a poem in Canada.
Interesting.
I was actually getting into it back home. I got to go to one before I had to move. So like I would have also like, explored it there, but I didn't get to. So then when I came here, the first thing I did isn't like, oh, I'm gonna go bare my soul to a bunch of random people I don't know in a country I don't want to be in. No, so poetry wasn't on the table like at all.
Right.
So like I got into that, and of course like that like grew and snowballed, and I got to like do all these like amazing things with my poetry and like have my own community. Especially like the Black art community. It's so beautiful thing. So like for me, that became my therapy. That was so much more helpful than going to therapy at UFC, because at that time, like of course, like the therapy is covered because you're a student. So outside of that, therapy costs like $200 up a session. Can't afford that. And if of course there's free resources as well, but either it's like online, which I personally can't do, and then or it's like it's a free program, and usually when it's a free program, they don't have like the resources you need, like with like a Black therapist. Usually like the free resources don't include a Black therapist, unfortunately. And so I was like, okay, so poetry became my therapy, art community became my therapy. So now I was like, a Kenny's student that's kind of bad at school, but also like now I'm doing art. So it was like, oh my gosh. And like looking back, like I wish I did like a different degree. But of course, like, in the end, I'm a science girly. I still like science and stuff. Got my degree, got that paper. But yeah, like I wish like I could explore that side. But of course, as a Niger immigrant, you don't go and do art. You don't go do arts in school.
Yeah.
You go do science, medicine, law, engineering. What are you talking about? Let's do arts.
Yeah.
It's like get your degree first, and then you can do whatever you want afterwards.
Did you always have sort of art in the back of your mind, or did it really? Because like you were saying, you've been writing for a while. You've been writing back home. That was always kind of a part of you.
Yes.
So in your mind, was that kind of like, oh, that's gonna be there, sort of as a hobby? When did that switch for you to like, no, this is what I want my career to be. I want to express myself this way to really be creative.
Yeah. Actually, growing up, I wanted to do theater. I wanted to do theater and drama.
Okay.
I was always like really good at English. Like, I was just good at it, good at that stuff. I also took a course in high school called drama. You could do that like as an option, just like an extra. And then going to university, I didn't apply for theater or drama. I applied for at the University of Pretoria. I did a triple science degree in genetics, physiology, and psychology. And then, like I said, like when I was applying the year before to Canadian schools, there was nothing of that equivalency, like a triple degree. So I just did kinesiology. And so I did kinesiology and majored in exercise physiology. I didn't finish with that because, I wasn't doing well in that. So it was like, it was wild. So I never thought of it being as a career, because growing up it was like, you're going to not be able to feed your children. Like in my brain, I'm like, I can't have children, I can't feed them. That's not you can't do that. You need to set yourself up for success so you can set up your kids for success. And art was not that success. Okay, white kids did art. Okay, white kids went to go do the art, the theater. And that's also a problem, because now you don't have the Black people in the arts, in the theater, to show your kids that you can do this as a profession.
Right.
So no one told me that I could be a spoken word artist. Like no one even tells you, like, because like for ideas, when people say like, oh, I'm a poet, you think like, okay, like you write books, and then sometimes you'll like sit and kind of like, read it to, kids or people. I don't know. Yeah. And then there's that, and then there's like Rupi Kaur, which is like, and that's like a huge like gap, especially because Rupi Kaur got to like blow up in a time when like Instagram poets were like not really a thing yet, and stuff like that. And she like, I mean, her work is great. I have like 3 of her books, but it's like you now you can't be Rupi Kaur because she got to like blow up in a certain like period of time on social media where you could blow up like that. That's not the case any longer.
Yeah.
And so it's like you don't see the path. There's no path to success as a Black artist. Like there's no one to like tell you. There's no mentors to just like tell you like you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Like there is for like other communities, especially like white communities. Like because like show you like the grants you can apply for, the societies you can be a part of, the events you can do. Da da da. I literally had to figure that stuff like that on my own. Just like, you know, Bethel was figuring out her own stuff. Just like Wakefield was figuring out his own stuff. We had to create the community that you wanted to grow in because it didn't exist for you. So that's literally how it had to be. So I wish like I could have like gone and done like an English degree or like something like that. But it's okay, you know, we move, okay, it's okay, you know. And so like I had to like carve that out for myself, and that's why I started like my poetic designers thing. I wanted to be a part of the I wanted to be a part of the tools that other like BIPOC artists can use to like further their career, because when you're even like growing up as if you're pursuing art and you don't know what to do. You're like, what do I do? So I can be one of the people there that's like saying, okay, you need to have branding, you need to have a website, you need to like make sure your social media is a certain way for you, like the way like how you want to present yourself on social media. And that's another thing. I like to like break the rules of social media, saying like you need to post like 3 times a day, 5 times a day, all these things, because social media is also overwhelming, especially now after the pandemic. I'm not even after, during this is the pandemic times. I don't know, you know, like
this is the world.
You know, I hear a cough and I'm like, is it? I was like, is it flu? Is it COVID? You know, like I actually kind of like think it's important that COVID became like part of like our daily lives. Like it's a serious thing that you need to be aware of constantly. Like you know, if you have bronchitis, you stay home.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy actually how we just used to like be sick and then
go to work.
Go
Go
all
to
the time.
school.
And now it's like that's just not happening.
You don't do
anymore.
that.
That's just not.
Don't do that.
But yeah.
Please don't. Because you get other people sick and then they're like, that's not the vibe. So like I think finding that I wanted to like pursue art and also like help others pursue art as well, like in this space where we're not seen, that like brought me just like internal joy. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have internal joy. I have things that bring me internal joy, you know? So it's like, you know, so things that just like bring me joy is just like, you know, living life. I live for the summertime. I love the summertime. It's so good. Especially coming from back home where wintertime is like, okay, it gets to like 1 degree in the night, and it's like maybe it's like 5, 7 during the day. By the time it hits like the middle of the afternoon, it's back up to 15.
Yeah.
You know?
Back home, she's talking about is South Africa.
South
just
Africa.
in case someone,
Sorry.
because
Yes.
it's not Nigeria.
Yeah, South Africa.
No.
Yes. But even Nigeria, I love going, like I really enjoy going to Nigeria. Like the humidity is so nice for the skin.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
That's
I've
the
never experienced such dryness as I have in this Calgary. I've never been dry. I don't understand.
That's the thing. I go anywhere else, and I'm always just like, why? How is lotion even a market? Like, I honestly will go somewhere else and be like, do people use lotion anywhere else?
I
I'm just
used
like,
to
don't
think
need
I
it.
had oily skin back
Right.
home. And then coming here, I don't know the kind of skin I have. Now I use
I don't know.
products for dry skin.
Yes.
Because it's
Yes.
just wild. Like the weather is
I know.
so dry and so annoying. And it
Exactly.
just drains you. I think it's
Exactly.
all part of the thing that adds to the whole depression. It's
Exactly.
just like,
Because it's like you have this beautiful melanated skin,
Yeah.
but if you're dry, you're ashy. And everyone, and because you're black, people can see you ashy. So it's like before I even got here, I was like, I need to lotion my hands. I lotion in the car. I have it in my bag. Because it's like so because then it comes into like the standards of beauty as well. So it's like suddenly you come to this country and you're like, you're not as desirable. Or you're desirable in a really, really creepy way, you know? Like
Yeah,
people, like
being
you see people, and you're like,
fetishized,
wow, this is I don't know if I like this kind of attention.
Yeah.
But also like you also want attention. You want to feel beautiful as well. So I feel like when you're like a black like a Nigerian immigrant, like everything, besides trying to like dodge like creepy uncles and stuff like that, you have to find your own intrinsic beauty and worth, because no one's gonna give it to you. That's gonna give it to you.
It's so true, and it like you said, it makes it extra complicated when there are actually practical things that are changing. You're like, oh, my hair's not thriving here the way it is because it's so dry.
that's why I'm
My
on low cut.
skin-
When I came to this country, I had hair.
Me too.
And then I had to cut my hair at some point because
can't-
it
You have
just
to.
drains everything
Yes.
about you.
And then you're slathering product in
Yeah,
it.
and then you
It
just
has
don't feel beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And you
it's
just
like
don't feel
there are
beautiful.
actual like beauty standards which are more societal, but then there are practical things. Like all of a sudden my skin feels terrible. My hair is not like I'm just like
I have eczema.
Yeah.
I'm like
And white people can stare. Like you could have ashy hands and you're like, oh my God, she's looking at my hands. She's really looking at my hands. Do I need to
Truly.
moisturize my hands? Like
truly.
it's just, it's just kind of weird in this situation. And I'm just coming back to everything you went through. Like, I can't imagine the headspace and everything that you were in. And as you were young, you were just 19.
I was like 20, I guess 20 at
You
the
were
time.
20.
Yeah.
So like how did everything, like family and all that play? Because you didn't move alone. You moved with your family and you were their you're still their child. And I think I seen you somewhere before after performing, and your parents were so supportive.
Oh,
The
yes.
hug. I think that was,
Yes.
you said that was the first time they ever watched you
Yeah,
perform or
yeah,
something
it
like that.
was.
And they were so supportive and all of that.
Oh my
So
God, I can't believe you saw that.
Oh.
yeah. So I'm just wondering, how was how were your parents in that situation, and what do you wish they had done differently just to help you with the movement and just reaping like your whole life from you
Yeah.
and coming to this country?
I do love them. That's a very good question, because the of course, like, while I was struggling with school, that I couldn't tell them, because they also, like, I love parents, so of course, like, they love you as well. So like, if they find out that you're struggling, or even if someone's like bullying you, they'll go full fire, full force.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mama
full
BS
fire,
coming out. Yeah.
like no doubt about it. Like if I told my parents that like I got punched by some white man, hell were broken loose. And in the end, it was like, the thing is, like, it wasn't seen, like, my punch wasn't witnessed, but my other friend's punch was witnessed. So it's like, and on my side as well, like, I think that's another thing, like, being like, being an African woman, you also like think about other people before yourself. So I thought to myself, like, I don't want to steal her attention because she got punched first, kind of thing, and no one saw me got punched, right? So I was like, okay, that's fine. So I didn't tell my parents that I got punched in the face. I didn't tell my parents that I was on academic probation, because like, I didn't want to disappoint them like so much, especially because I'm the firstborn daughter as well. So like, I'm like, my dad likes to call me like the second mom. I don't like being called second mom, because mom is mom and I need mom, and I can't be a mom the way my mom is a mom. I need mom. I'm no one's second mom. I don't have the capacity. And then so like, I couldn't tell them, like, I was like, they're going to be so disappointed in me. They're going to think either it's because I'm partying, or because I was hanging out with a man, or any of those things. They would have like blamed so many other things or my actions that led me to this place. And I was just like, I can't deal with that right now. It would have made it 100 times worse, especially because like, I had to have my own game plan to sort out this situation as well.
Yeah.
So, of course, like, I got like my degree and stuff like that, because like that's what my parents wanted. I was like, you know what, no one's gonna call me an uneducated black woman. I refuse. I absolutely refuse. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this degree. Like, I wanted to get my degree and stuff like that. I was like, I'm so for this, but I'm like struggling so hard.
Yeah.
And then so my parents are like proud of me because of that. But I truly had like, I really had to like do that like by myself, like struggling, all the tears of crying. Of course, like, everyone does it by themselves, but not everyone has like the same struggles.
Yeah.
And then when you're like an immigrant, when you're like a Nigerian immigrant, when you're like all these things, it's a whole different kind of ball game of suffering that we endure. And I feel like that's why, like, I could tell you about it, and you can be like, you can just like get me. And like, if I, sometimes if I try to like, tell this like other people, I don't usually. They'll just be like, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, like, it's just like pity instead of empathy or relatability, which is fine, because like, they can't experience that. But yeah, so like, my parents, like, they're great. They like support my art and stuff, but they only really like started like supporting me like and taking it seriously when I started taking it seriously and seeing that I can actually like make this into like a business or like make money, those kinds of things.
African parents, like having Nigerian parents.
Because in the end, like, they worry about you, right? They don't want you to be spending your time doing hours of things that isn't going to be fruitful to you or fruitful to the family, which is fair. Like, they want you to be successful, but I feel like sometimes like in that way, it's hard for them to see a path of success that you've tried to envision for yourself that they didn't envision for you.
Yeah.
So of course, like, growing up, like, my dad's a brain surgeon, so it's like, and my mom like works in the medical field, so it was like growing up, like, I like doctor was the way. Like, I was being like primed to go to medical school. I didn't like get into medical school. I like missed it by like 0.02% or something like that, because back home they tell you like how much you didn't make it, because it's like a point thing. But I was so relieved I didn't get in. I was like, oh my god, thank you. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And because like I knew like I could not go into med school. I was like, the way that I am, the way that I study, the way that I'm with people, the way I like to like prioritize different things and all those things, like I couldn't give my body and soul to medicine. I was like, no chance. And it was weird when I didn't get in. Like my parents, of course, like they were very upset, and my dad wanted me to go back to high school and retake my exams or something like that. I was like, no chance. On God's given earth am I going back to high school. And I was shook to the core. And so what happened is like I was like it was so strange. Like there was a time when like I was, you know, having an argument with my parents, and my mom said something that I will never forget in my whole entire life. She was like, well, if you didn't want to go to medical school, you could have just said so.
And did you say so?
That is so funny.
Yeah, like so many times, like I wanted to like do something else.
But
like,
you probably didn't say that, right?
You don't like say it outright. You don't say it outright.
An authority.
Exactly.
I can't speak up.
This is my job. I just need to fall in line. I need to do what I'm told. I need to do what's expected of me.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I didn't know you didn't want to do that. I just thought you
So
did. And then you're like, wait. You would have listened.
I was like, wow, exactly. So like, it's like if you want, I feel like if you want your kids to like communicate with you, you need to give them the space to like feel that they're going to be listened to. You can't say you should tell me everything, but then your reactions don't match.
You didn't have reason to believe that would have been a like supportive,
even an option. Even an option.
I
So
think
even
one thing about African parents is they might want, for instance, if your parent wants to say sorry, they might not say sorry, but they'll be like, have you eaten?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So like, you know, they care, but at the same time, you don't know if they're going to care at that moment, and you don't know how they're going to care. Like, you don't know if they're going to say, look at your head. You don't want to go to medical school. Now, what for you? Okay,
what are you going to do?
And you're like, I don't just want that now. What for you, please? I just want to. Yeah, that kind of thing. So
because they love you so furiously, like they just because they truly
Tough
just
love.
don't want you to suffer. Like they suffer because they've grown up seeing people suffer, so they just don't want you to suffer.
And being a black person too, like you have to be something to take up space.
You have
Because
to.
like if people could see a white artist and they're like, oh, this person is an artist, but when they see someone who is black and a doctor or a lawyer, it just feels like, oh, you have something that, like, you have to be successful.
Yes.
To be black, you have to be successful. So then you're not seen as a junkie or someone who doesn't know anything or a thug or someone who is intimidating. You have to have something for yourself. So I guess maybe being a serial immigrant, like moving from your parents must have seen something in South Africa, and then moving again, they're just like, okay, this is who I have to be in order to be enough for where I have moved to. But then how do you understand it when they do not communicate it, right?
Exactly.
See, I feel like that's such an important point that we don't necessarily like talk about enough. Is like this idea of like, yes, having to be this thing in order to be enough, which is a very societal sort of social pressure, but it's also a government like immigration pressure where you look at how most people came here and it's through the workers program or whatever. So it's like when we're looking at adults who immigrated to Canada, most of them are doctors, lawyers. If they're not a doctor, they have a doctorate. They have, you know, they have masters. They're science.
Like they're educated on educated on educated on educated.
And they have something that's so undeniable that the government's, oh, we want that. We want you.
Exactly.
So I feel like even like both of you represent this very new, interesting, like this like new wave or generation of like adult immigrants who are artists and are in the arts. Now, having said that, you both have degrees that aren't arts related, and
Wait,
you
what degree do you
very
have?
well educated.
So my first degree is actually in mass communication, and it's weird because I wanted to be a lawyer. And my mom prayed and fasted and said I wasn't going to be a lawyer. So that's
Wait,
very
you
weird.
You weren't going to be?
I wasn't going to be.
Your
She
mom
didn't want me to be a lawyer because she was like,
My
on
mom
a
also
normal-
wasn't really on the law. She was like, law is not the one.
Yeah, because you're a woman. I think because most of the reason was because women always feel like we women, we need to stop. Women always feel like we women are there to become something like under the man. So like my mom was like, on a normal day, you act like a lawyer. You're so argumentative and you're so authoritative and you take up space. And if you become a lawyer, you would be something like you would
Yeah.
intimidate the man, and you're supposed to be under the man.
Oh.
So my mom was just
Like,
like,
you'll be too powerful if you become a lawyer.
yeah.
my mom didn't
Okay.
want
Oh
me
my
to
God.
be too powerful to
Right.
the point
Oh
where
my
I
God.
won't be able
man
to
would
get
want
married.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yo,
So my mom
that's
was like,
powerful.
anything, I do not care. Just
Yes,
don't be a
just don't
lawyer.
be a
So then I ended up with mass communication.
Okay.
And then the plan was that I was going to shock my mom, and that after 2 years, I would switch into law. But then I started to enjoy it. I started to enjoy mass communication. I was like, it's just like an occupation or a discipline where you know little of everything. You know about medicine, you know about law, you know about every single thing, about politics and all of that. And I loved it. I love to meet people. I love to talk. And that was why I was like, okay. And then I have my master's in international relations and diplomacy. And then before I came here and then had the photojournalism degree. So it's just having so much education. Yes, I love education and I love to read and all of that. But at the same time, I'm just like, is this enough for where I am? Am I able to, like, I wanted to go into PR. And then, because I've always been a communications person. And then coming here and doing my internship in a PR agency, it just felt like maybe I'm not, like, that was where I doubted myself the most, because I just started feeling like maybe I'm not enough for this. Maybe I should use the degree that I've acquired in this part of the world.
Right.
And then maybe later on I could take another degree in PR, like public relations here, and then it could help me fit into this organization. That's why I'm like, maybe go to MRU, because most people in that space schooled in MRU, and then it helps you get space for
But
that.
that feeling of like, I need more.
Exactly,
I have to be more
just
educated.
wanting
I have
more
to be
and
like,
all of that.
yeah.
So like, where are you able to know that what you have is enough? Like your report. Like, do you work? Do you right now? Do you work in the like the space where you're educated in?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, because I have a degree in kinesiology, but I'm not currently practicing kinesiologist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the things like the poetry and the brand and web design, it's all like freelance. But like what's so amazing like that I've been discovering is just like you, I think to myself like maybe I should like go back to school and like, get this qualification, and it's like why do I feel like I'm already doing what I say I need to
Like,
be
you have
doing,
to prove yourself.
but now
or
I need to get like a
Exactly.
paper, you know, that says like
to
I am
show
qualified
that
to
I'm
do
enough.
this.
Yeah.
You know, which is so like it's such a wild thing to
Yeah.
me. But the thing is like in the end like you have to, because like I remember when I just got here and we would do things like, you know, take cabs and take Ubers, and the stories that we would hear from like, you know, these like, you know, taxi drivers, these Uber drivers, is like I literally met a taxi driver once that had his PhD in biomedical engineering, and I was shook to the core.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, how's this happening?
I
How's it
know a
happening right
barber
now?
who has a PhD in law.
It's like, my dad has a PhD, and for the first Lord knows how long of us being here, he was a janitor.
Yeah.
For like the longest time.
Like because you can't do, even though you have to prove so much to be here,
Yeah.
they're like, still your schooling is still not good enough for you to take up space in the field that you've been studying like your whole life. So what did you think I was doing? I wasn't playing games.
Yeah.
I wasn't playing games. Like they went to university, they did the work, they got the recognition, especially like, you know, if it's like doctors or anyone like working with like people as well, it's like people have been trusting them with their lives for a very long time. Let these people work in the field that they had to prove themselves competent enough in to be here. Let them work in this thing. But they don't. They have to take all these like weird tests, like tests that are also like set against them. You know, it's like they'll take these tests and they'll be failing at a higher rate than, let's say, like a Canadian educated person like took these tests, because like they say they're taking the same test. It can't be possible, because in the end, like all these things, like they're universal around the world. Math is the same. Math is the same around the world. Medicine is the same around the world. So you can't tell me that all these internationally educated doctors, engineers, lawyers are failing a test. It's not possible. It's not possible. So I'm just like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? In the end, like, there should be some kind of like practical test, some kind of like something to literally like prove their competency, and let them move on. Let them move on. Let them work at the let them work with what they've been working with like their whole lives. They came here for opportunity, not to like be like, okay, I'm going to settle for being, you know, a janitor here in Canada because that's all they let me be, and it's supposed to be better than my country.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with this.
Yeah,
I'm happy with this. You have a PhD. What are you doing being a janitor?
It's
That makes
actually,
sense.
it's crazy. And I think it really just ties into like everything you're both saying of this idea that is so deeply ingrained into the immigrant experience, which again is both societal, institutional. It's like built into all of our processes of like, you better be able to prove and prove again and prove again and prove like through like, yeah, your actual work, prove through the papers that you have, prove through all of this, prove through like, we are going to continuously make you prove that you are good enough. And so when you then do that, you kind of, you get your paper, you get your degree, you get your whatever, and then you're kind of brave enough to be like, what do I actually want to pursue? Like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an artist. I want to be a photojournalist. I want to do this idea of like, but that can't be good enough. Like, that's not the thing.
Yeah,
that's not
thing.
the doctorate. That's not
Exactly.
the law degree.
Exactly.
And it's like, how do you get out of that headspace of like, I constantly have to prove myself and prove I'm good enough and prove my credibility. And I think like, I'm hoping we're moving into this new wave, new generation of like, you're going to see immigrants who are artists. Like,
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, please.
Like in the media, doing the things,
that's
like
gonna
all the
be a
things.
thing, but it's like, that hasn't really been a thing.
Another thing is, we might be enough here. Like, arts is a thing here in this part of the world. And it might be a big thing here. And you're like, oh, yeah, we are finally taking up space here as... Like, when you go into a place for artists, you're not just seeing white people, you're also seeing black people. But then, for some of us who still have something back home, we have family back home and all of that, how then are you able to prove to them that you are something? Because to them, you're just an artist. So it's just so many...
You still carry
or you're hiding money.
Of,
you're hiding money from them.
Such a good point. Even if it's like here, it's like respectable. You have, like, that's so cool. And in fact, it's like more impressive if you can like make a living that way and you're doing it well. People are are really attracted to that. But then if you still carry the burden of you're talking to people at home or you're talking, and they're kind of like putting you down for that. Or,
like, nobody sees you as anything. But then at the end of the day, like, why do we have to care about the way people see
do we need
us?
the validation?
It's just weird. Like, life is just... Like, I was listening to a podcast when I came in, and it was just about being a people pleaser. And someone was like the host of the show, Jay Shetty, shout out to you, was like, it's not a bad thing to be a people pleaser. The only time that it's bad is if you then put yourself down in order to please people. So like, making people happy, but then like, this part feels like you're putting yourself down, you're putting your feelings down inside, in order to be enough for the world. So then how are we able to put, like, with your... I feel like you're a poet, so like, you have all the answers to everything, because your words sometimes go deep. So like, how have you... because that's kind of how it helps you process the whole situation. How are you able to tell yourself, and sometimes you might just write this poem and you're like, you're just like, oh, I'm drained. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but like, when after putting everything into words and trying to make people realize and like just put in the words and all of that, how does it make you feel? Does it feel like you've been able to process the whole situation, or does it feel like it drains you even more? For instance, you said you put something on CBC and there were so many... So I can't imagine how draining it must have been responding to every single person in the comment section. So does it drain you, or does it add to you? Does it lift you up? Does it give you that strength to keep fighting and just... It's
a very good question. I think it does both, because like you said, like when I saw those comments, like on the one hand, of course, I'm like, you know, it's that thing when you say that you're disappointed but you're not surprised. So that's the thing that happened to me as well, because like so many times like you hear immigrant stories where people are telling them like all you're trying to express is like you do miss home, and then Canadians will take it as like, you know, Canada isn't good enough for you, you're ungrateful, go then leave, you know. And so those are the kinds of things I was seeing like in the comments in the CBC article. I was like, this is exactly what immigrants are trying to tell people is happening to them, and no one is like believing us, like gaslighting us, be like, oh no, you're just ungrateful, like if your country was so great, like why did you even leave, and if our country is so bad, then you should just go back. And it's like a lot of us would love to peace out, okay? A lot of us would love to leave. This is a winter wonderland. Okay, -40. No one. A lot of you guys don't even stay here during -40. All of you snowbirds. You go to Mexico. You're going to Cancun. You're going to Bali. You're going to. Even you don't want to be here in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So we're not made for this. Like
look at my skin. Like look at me. It's like cracking.
And I'm busy, and we're busy fueling your lotion industry. Like get out of here. So it's like all these things, like people like expect you to be when you move to Canada. They expect you to be quiet. They expect you to be grateful. They expect you not and just say that Canada is the best place ever. Like it changed your whole life. Of course, it changed your life. Like you had to immigrate. You had to immigrate, or your parents had to immigrate, and you're living in this situation where it's like you have like all these like dual identities and stuff like that. And then there's all this like the government and the racism, especially like all the racism that really came out during the pandemic. People were really out and proud about their racism. Like still today, like the people on the corners busy protesting the thing. I'm like, what are you even protesting right now?
I never know. People are just like,
what is happening?
Why?
Yeah. And it's just like, people flying the Confederate flag, and then like all these people with like all the, other hate symbols, like just pulling through Calgary, and you see in the back of their truck, and you're like,
what am I doing here?
And it's scary. Like you're afraid for your safety, because all it's gonna take is like one like super, like sometimes this, I think of this in my mind, it's just gonna take like one really angry, super drunk racist to see me first, and now I'm in danger. So just because of like their mood, because all these things are happening. And then, so it's like, it's so stressful to like think about. And so, like I said, like, so when I was like reading those comments, like, does it like fuel me or does it like tire me? I'm very tired. I'm very, very tired. Like, I'm like, especially because I'm in customer service. So like, I'm dealing with like people a lot. Like, I get a lot of like, like white people that come to the gallery, like either like they'll pull up behind me and like put their fingers in my hair, or they'll like, talk like super, super close to me. Or they'll be like, oh, like, how did you get this job? Like, did you have to spend a long time studying English when you got this job? And they're like, goodness. And I'm just like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh, this is actually wild. Yeah. You said something really important. You said people, when you come, they expect you to be quiet, and they expect you to be grateful. And I think that's really a really, really important kind of like message and distinction. I think that's so, so true. And so I think like practicing, first of all, being vocal and telling your story and speaking your truth is such an important part of the process. And I'm sure it's such an important part of that energizing piece and the healing piece. And also expressing the challenges when people are just like, you should just be grateful. It's like, you could like being vocal and expressing the hardships and the pain and the challenges, I feel like are both such important things that can be very energizing, but to the point, there's always going to be that retaliation. There's going to be that backlash, which is so draining. And then you're like, okay, back at it. It's just this cycle.
And what's wild is like, as like, 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 especially like as like Nigerian, like people with like Nigerian parents, it's like you grow up not being grateful and being quiet. That's how you're supposed to be, They raised you, they fed you, they sent you to school.
True.
So like you grow up in this space where like you're supposed to be grateful, you're supposed to be quiet. You don't embarrass your parents in front of other people. Study what they need you to study so you can be successful. So other people can also see them having successful children. So they don't think that they're, because in the end it's like, what your children do like reflects on you as a parent as well. So it's like, but now your parents have moved you into this space where other people that aren't your family expect you to be quiet and grateful as well. But now in that space where you've trained me to be quiet and grateful, these people who expect me to be quiet and grateful are trying to put me down and don't want me to succeed. So what am I supposed to do? I need to stand up. But I didn't grow up standing up for myself.
Yes.
So
oh my gosh.
Mom and dad help. Like mom and dad help.
So
help me.
It's so true. And people talking, you grow up with these kids who are like speaking back to their parents. I remember talking to one person, they're like, well, every teenager tells their parents they hate them. I was like,
my God.
Nope.
Oh my God.
Nope, not in my household. You don't say it. Of course you hate it. Like you write it in your journal, whatever.
Exactly. The
but
diary.
I love that. It's so true, because you're raised to be quiet and to be grateful. That is the mentality. And then you come here and then, and it's like, oh my gosh.
It's like now we have to fight.
Everything.
So it's like, you know, and it's like, and things like you're right, like you don't talk back to your parents. And it's not even just like a fear thing of like, you know, being like punished. It's like, I don't want my parents, I want my parents to love me. I want them to love me. I need my parents' love because I love them and I need their validation as well.
Yeah.
I need them to see me that even though I'm making different choices than them, I need to be successful in the choices that I'm making so they can't tell me that my choices are wrong and their choices are right. So I need to be right and loved, but that's hard.
Exactly. And like the validating, the credible, I need to be, oh my gosh, it's a lot. I want to be mindful of time because, and we have 2 questions that we always ask everyone. So let's do it because I know you have to go to work. Okay, the first question. The first question is, well, and you kind of asked this a little bit earlier, but what's a common sort of misconception or myth that people would have about whether it's South Africa, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's something that has to do with like your culture, upbringing? It can really be anything. But what's kind of a misconception or something like that that you come against?
It's wild. Even there's so many, you have to choose one. I think for me, besides like the English speaking thing, it's this is gonna sound very interesting. It's like kind of like the fact that you're, how do I put this? Wow, you're asking hard questions. Call it misconception. I think one of the things that kind of bothers me the most is that we're not welcoming. You know, where it's like we're like kind of like you'll say, like, for example, like if your friends are like, let's go to Cowboys. You're like, okay, fine, I'm down. Let's go to Cowboys. But if you want to invite them into like, you know, a Nigerian space, or like some kind of like party or anything, they'll be like, oh no, I can't go there. It's like, can I even come?
Oh my gosh,
can I come?
True.
It's like, of course you can come. Just don't be like, what? Just come.
Yeah.
You know, we want you to come and enjoy the culture, enjoy the food, enjoy the party, because also you want to come more so we can also enjoy our things more and not only have to like always go with our black friends to black events. It's like we want you to go to like these events because we're always constantly having to go to all these other white events, you know? So it's like, come to the party. Come to the party. You're 100% welcome. Don't assume that we're gonna start like popping off because you're a white person in a black space. Like that's not the case. That's really not the case.
So the assumption, which is actually crazy. It's like, when does that ever happen?
Because they always assume they
assume that we're as bad as they are.
Exactly. It's like they assume like just because you're asking about like they have this like weird mentality where it's like now they're scared to like ask questions. It's like, you can ask about my hair, but you don't need to touch it.
Yeah.
It's like you and then they'll be like, then there's like, that's another thing that kind of like annoys me. Like they'll start saying things like, oh, but I can't say that. Oh, can I say that? It's like, if you're questioning yourself, maybe not say it. I don't know, like, maybe
I don't
not
know why
say
it's
it.
so difficult for people to navigate the boundaries between like respect and like being intrusive. Like, I just don't think it's that hard to like ask someone a question respectfully about themselves, about their culture, about whatever. But it's just like, they're like, well, no, I don't even want to. I don't want to like say the wrong thing. I don't want to, and it's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I think what really solidified it for me like once as well, like even with the whole hair touching thing, because like you said, like finding someone to do my hair in Calgary, it was the most grueling, it was the most upsetting, one of the most upsetting things about being in Calgary. It's like, because back home it's like, if you need to go do your hair, there's millions of people. Millions of people. You get a haircut, get your hair braided, do literally whatever you want, and they'll do it quick and they'll do it well. But like here, it was like a struggle. It was like a full struggle. And even like sometimes like you'll find like there'll be like the smaller black hair salons that don't even want to help you blow dry your natural hair. They're like, don't you want to relax it? Don't you want to texturize it? You're like, no, I want my hair to be natural. But of course, like it's easier for them, of course, to like, you know, do your hair if it's like relaxed or natural. But it's like, I don't want my hair, like, I don't want to relax my hair. You know, I spent my whole life relaxing my hair. I'm a natural girly now. I don't want to do it. And so, like, when I do get my hair done, it was like, it's always like a thing, because they always notice when your hair is like new, fresh. Sometimes they don't realize when it's like getting a little bit old, which is also nice.
Yeah.
But then I thought to myself, I was like, if I were to go to my friend, my non-BIPOC friend, and she just got her highlights or whatever, if my first reaction if she put my hands into your hair, you would scream murder. You would scream murder.
No, like literally.
Like it's not normal. It's not normal for you to put your hands in other people's hair. But for some reason, when it's like a black person who just got their hair done, their first thing is to try to reach out and touch. I'm like, I need you to think about that because you don't do that with your friends. Why are you doing that with me? I'm a stranger, and I'm a black person. But you thought it was okay for you to literally touch my hair with your nasty hands. And we know people don't wash their hands now after the pandemic. People are shook about, why should I wash my hands after coming from outside? Why would you not wash your hands after coming
you're
from
literally
outside?
like, in what world, except for somehow people also think this is okay to do to pregnant women, which I will never understand. But in what world do you just like touch
someone's belly?
It's crazy.
Touch anybody.
I'm like, stop touching people's bellies. Stop touching people's hair. That feels like such a simple request.
But it's not. Because like, I feel like for them,
so
like,
difficult for
for white people, like black people have always been this like accessible thing. So it's like it's okay for me to just touch it. Like, it's probably not there, so maybe not like touch it. It's like this is attached to my head.
Oh my gosh, when I was a kid, and no, this is last tangent.
Yes.
But when I was a kid, my friends, my white friends, would always come to me, pull my hair, and go, "Can you feel that? Can you feel that?" Yeah, because they were like, because it's not real, right? It's fake hair. So can you feel that? And
It's
I
like
was
it's on my head,
yes,
bro.
you fucking idiot! It's attached to my head. I just got a flashback and remember that.
Yeah, it's trauma and tea and trauma. Tea and trauma with Diary of a Niger Immigrant.
Okay, final question.
Yes.
Take it away.
Okay, final question. What is one thing you wish you knew before buying that one-way ticket to come to Canada or to Calgary? I want to relate this differently with you because there are some questions that I have that I feel like are not answered yet. Because
part two.
I'll
come back.
Yeah. So it's just like before your parents brought you here, they almost thought you had to be grateful because they were giving you a better life, a chance at a better life. But it's just the way of doing it. Like, don't do it like, oh, you have to be grateful, I'm doing you a favor or something like that. Because you have a part to play, especially if you're already an adult and you could make decisions for yourself. So what is one thing you wish your parents did differently, or like the support you wish you had that would have helped you thrive better before buying that one-way ticket?
I think I want to say that I wish that they I wish they would have like made it in a way that I wasn't like having to like leave like my life behind or my friends like forever. Like even if they said something like, well, for one, like, I know it's going to be hard to leave. I'm sorry. Just like, holding you while you're crying about, your life falling apart. And then say like, we can make plans to visit. We can always like do this. Don't worry about it. We'll like make sure that you can still like, talk with your friends and all those kinds of things. But they made it like, one of the things like my parents always said that they're like, oh yeah, 10 friends can't be friends for 10 years, that kind of thing. And like it almost like undermines like the connections that you have and undermines like your friendships and stuff like that. Like sure, maybe like 10 friends can be friends for 10 years, but then like you have all these people that you've been friends with like your whole life. Those are still your friends. And why are you ending my friendship for me? And they would say things like, oh, like they're moving on with their life, you move on with your life. And it's like, why can't we be in each other's lives? Why is that the case? Like, why is it like you move countries and suddenly now you have to like cut all ties with the people that you love? That doesn't make sense to me. So I just wish that they were a little more understanding that like, especially like when you are like, the child of an immigrant and stuff, it's like your friends are like your family. Those are people like you raise each other. Like those are your people, because, mom and dad are out working all the time, so you have like the friends that the people that you relate to, the people you grew up with. I think sometimes like the things like obsess me sometimes is like I'll be here and then I'll be walking with someone else that like grew up here and they'll like walk by someone that they like went to high school with, or like they'll have like a conversation, all those things like who grew up in like in the same city as them or something like that, and like that joy that they have when they see that person. And I'm just like, I literally won't find any of my people. I won't be able to bump into my friends, and it's like people you grew up with, and it's just like, oh, okay. That's nice. And they'll take it for granted or whatever, and it's just like they'll be like, oh yeah, it's just like high school, I couldn't like wait to get out of there. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like I'd give anything.
Yeah, I'd give anything to bump into someone I know. It's like, because I recently like bumped into, no, I didn't bump into, I went to like Vancouver, and it was someone that I went to high school with. His name is Dylan Naidu. Shout out Dylan. And because he left the school before I left, and then we met up in Vancouver. The first time I went to Vancouver, we didn't meet up because we were both busy, and then I went to Vancouver again, and then we met up. It was the most beautiful. Oh my gosh, it was the most beautiful moment of my life. And he's not black; he's Indian. His family is like from India, and then but there's a very large Indian population in South Africa as well. Like very, very large. It's
They're
fantastic.
everywhere.
So good. Love it.
Yeah.
Food is phenomenal. And we met each other, and it was one of the most beautiful moments I've had since I moved to this country. And that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was so amazing that I did an event at C Space for Poetry Month. It was with the poetry festival, People's Poetry Festival, and his mom and dad live in Calgary, but he lives in Vancouver. And so when they came to visit their parents, he came to visit his parents in Calgary with his girlfriend. They went to my show. So I also got to see his parents. I know his parents I was 12. I met his parents many times. I'm like, these are Dylan's parents.
Nice.
And I got to see Dylan's parents and talk to them and all these things. And it's that's the thing I feel people also don't understand about South Africa. It's South Africa, it's you literally the feeling of community that I had there, I don't feel here. It's I feel very small portions here, but back home, it's so powerful and it's so amazing. And it's of course, here when I came to Calgary, one of the first things I tried to do was I'm gonna reach out to the the Calgary Nigerian, society. I'm gonna be a part of that. But also it's a lot of the people that are there, they're my parents, right? So it's I want to be a part of this community, but I also don't want to now be restricted by my community's mentality as well, because I love being Nigerian. Being Nigerian is flex, okay? It's the best thing ever. So good. But there's also parts of our culture that we have to continuously fight against just so we can be our own person. And we're just looking for our friends, our people who feel that too. It's you're struggling, I'm also struggling, girl. We just want to be happy and and create new, break generational traumas, curses, break them. And just be happy in ways that other people don't think that we can be happy. So I think I just wish my parents were a little more when we were moving here. I just wish that they were a little more understanding of what I was going through, and not just seeing it as they worked so hard and now my children aren't grateful for what I did for them. Because my dad likes to joke and say when we were moving and I was upset, he said when we get there you're gonna be telling me down the line oh Dad, I'm so glad you moved us here. And he likes to say now that I'm thriving in the way that I had to thrive. He likes to say, sometimes he likes to joke and say, oh, remember what did I say? It's I haven't said that to you yet.
We're still not there yet.
Not even yet. I don't know if I'll ever say to him I'm grateful that you moved us here. Because in the end I don't even necessarily see myself being in Canada forever. There's so many things that I want to do that I didn't get to do while I was being raised the way that I was raised, because it was so limiting. I was the one that had to choose to get 2 part-time jobs in university. Usually you don't get a job in university, all you do is study. That's what you have to focus on. But I saw myself in my brain as I need to put myself in a position where I have my own money, I need to be independent so I can do the things that I want to do, so I'm not bound by financials. And that's another thing with the whole immigration process as well. It's you said your dad, he has his PhD, but he was a janitor for so long. And that's another way of stifling generational wealth. Because now during that time when your dad was a janitor, instead of, he could have been doing another job that he was qualified to do and building his pension, retiring early all these other white people get to do, and and spend their elderly years just just chilling and vibing, because they'd be stressed, they'd be stressed. So it's another thing, it's they our parents had to work longer, they had to work for a long amount of time, and so we're we're also we also have to think about taking care of them and in their older age, because in our culture you don't just throw your parents in the old age home. Just throw your parents in the old age home. Are you insane? I'm I can't imagine my parents living in an old age home. For me, I want my parents exactly. So it's I don't know if we're necessarily gonna live together forever, but I also want you to see the fruits of your own labor. But now you're in a society that doesn't really see the fruit of your labor. It's no, you need to work hard until you're literally old.
But I feel like it really all comes down to this whole idea of one day you'll look back and say this. It comes down, there's this mentality that gets passed down of being okay with just like with just accepting kind of the crumbs. And that it's that like be grateful, like, you know, all of those things. And it's like on one hand, when you are just trying to survive, that makes a lot of sense. You're like, I'm grateful to be alive, I'm grateful to have a roof over my head, I'm grateful, which again isn't something that like our people and our ancestors deserved. That's something that everybody is entitled to, but was taken from them. And so I feel like that gets passed down of just like be grateful, and you're like, well, I want more for myself, or I want this for myself, and that's okay. Like, you know, that doesn't mean I'm ungrateful. That doesn't mean that I'm not appreciative.
But we should be allowed to want more.
Yeah, I'm allowed to want more.
Yeah, especially for ourselves. But
thank you so much for joining us. Oh my gosh, this will not be the last conversation. And thank you so much for listening. And we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye. The Diary of a Niger Immigrant is proudly presented to you through Onyi's Lens. You can keep up with us on Instagram by following The Diary of a Niger Immigrant and through Onyi's Lens. Don't forget to rate, share, like, and drop a comment on topics you'd like us to discuss. And I'll see you on the next one.